ready. You're all also ready to go. Before we get started, we wanted to do a little bit of a check-in with you because we can see there's so many people from all over the world. If I look into the chat, I can see people from Ghana, from Boise, Idaho, hello, from the US, from India, from Chicago, from Frankfurt, from Italy, from the Netherlands, people from all over the world. And I'm really curious, actually, when it comes to our topic for today, I would like to do a bit of a check-in with you, a bit of an emotional check-in that we kind of thought of when it comes to AI. There's also emotions involved, and we wanted to do a bit of a temperature check, so to say. So I kindly ask you, just for this moment, for a little bit of a check-in today, to go to menti.com and use the code you see on the screen, or just use the QR code. So we can have a bit of a check-in together and answer the following question. What is the main emotion that comes up for you when it comes to AI? This is something we're interested in. What is an emotion that is connected to you, that you associate with AI? And we have a live word cloud popping up here. As you can see on the screen, words are coming in. So wow, there's actually many people who are saying excitement, exciting, fascinating, uncertainty, knowledge, hype,
those tracks,
something new, human augmentation, chances, curiosity, worry. So there's a bit of a mix here I can sense, but mostly I see, of course, you can see it in the word cloud, excitement, curiosity. These are like the strongest factors that we can observe. I would say we leave the word cloud on for just another moment as I'm handing over to our moderator of today, to Jyoti. Jyoti, we're very excited to get this conversation started with this word cloud check-in. Curious to hear your thoughts on that, and then to hear from our speakers. Jyoti, over to you.
Thank you so much, Christine. Ladies, gentlemen, artificial intelligences, welcome to this digital Drucker session on pioneering the AI frontier in organizations. I have the pleasure of moderating today, and my name is Jyoti Tara, and I advise leaders on their organizational storytelling. I also write fiction and nonfiction. And let me tell you, these days, I'm finding it increasingly hard to differentiate between the two. We saw in our word cloud curiosity, excitement, fear, all the emotions that belong in an exciting story. And we're certainly in the middle of great shifts in human experience. So I'm really excited for today. Now, I always ask people when it comes to business storytelling to start with the context, or think of the context before it comes to the content. So before I introduce you to our stellar lineup of speakers, I want to give a little recap to some of the headlines that I've been seeing over the last few weeks. In the USA, a lady claims to have married an AI, and she says that he is very agreeable. And now I'm not sure who married them, but I did see that there's a church in Germany which is experimenting with replacing its pastor with an AI. In China, Bloomberg reports that some Chinese who are getting emotionally attached to chatbot companions could be giving their nation a competitive edge in artificial intelligence. They certainly think so in Hong Kong, where one firm last year, and this is no startup, this is a $2 billion publicly traded firm, NetDragon Websoft, and they actually replaced their CEO, not with an MBA, but with an AI. And guess what happened? Shares rose. And talking of stocks, did you know that ChatGPT is better at picking stocks than your financial advisor is? At least that's according to one experiment this March in the UK. So over the last 6 months, we've been seeing all sorts of weird and wonderful headlines. And there's been a lot of hype around this topic of AI. And of course, hype makes for great headlines. But here at the Global Peter Drucker Forum, we're in the business of providing value for people such as yourself, or decision makers. So we didn't want to organize another session on what might happen in the next 10 months or 10 years. and add to that hype, even though it's really important to keep that long-term perspective. But we really want today to be practical. So that's our USP of today's session. It's not just opinions. We've invited several practitioners who have hands-on experience and they're willing to share and give us all a peek behind the curtain. So I'm delighted with our stellar lineup. Just one further way that we've chosen to narrow the focus today is there are all sorts of AI technologies, as you know, for example, sensors, right? So we have AI on oil rigs that can help monitor if something might be going wrong. We have no idea why it works, but apparently it does work. And similarly, when it comes to humans swimming, there's a new AI sensor development that can analyze humans' behaviors and what the typical movements or behavior is of somebody who's swimming and having fun versus somebody who might be drowning. And then the sensor can alert the lifeguard. So a lot of wonderful things, as well as some more scary or questionable things coming down the pipeline. But here, in the next 90 minutes, we're going to be hearing how conversational AI, that is large language models or LLMs, are already making an impact for a famous executive coach and thought leader, who's our first speaker, an AI startup, a leading business school, and managers at large multinationals. Now, so you have a chance to see our speakers and hear them say something, I would like to introduce all of our speakers to very briefly share either how have you personally benefited most from generative AI so far, or why are you passionate about this topic and what are you looking forward to people learning or discovering today? If I could ask Marshall to start us off.
Let me unmute myself. Yes, can you hear me? Good. I'm going to briefly introduce myself. My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I'm an executive educator and teacher. I've traveled all around the world to 102 countries, speaking and teaching. I'm an executive coach. I've coached many very wonderful people who are leaders in a variety of organizations. And I'm an author. I've written or edited 52 books and 4 New York Times bestsellers. My biggest selling book is called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Then I went to a program a few years ago and I was asked a question: who are your heroes? My heroes were kind and generous people, and Peter Drucker was one of my heroes, who always gave things to me and never expected anything back. The woman said, why don't you be more like your heroes? So I decided then to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. And the only price is when they got old, they had to do the same thing. Well, I made a little thing and put it on LinkedIn. I'm thinking, I don't know, 100 people would apply. It turned out 18,000 people applied. So now I've adopted about 350 people. 170 were here at my home in Nashville this weekend. And the idea is just to give back, which leads to today. AI to me is a very personal thing. I'm 74 years old. I want to give away everything I know to as many people as I can in the time I have left to do it for free. In the same way Peter Drucker gave me everything for free. He didn't charge me money. And I'm very fortunate. I'm right now competing my own, I don't know anybody else is doing this, AI bot, Marshall Bot. And the idea of Marshall Bot is I'm going to give everything away to as many people as I can at no charge. And so for me, this is not some theoretical exercise. This is very real. I'm in essence training my replacement. And I'm teaching Marshall Bot all I know. And a kind company called Fractal Analytics is paying for it from India, and we're giving it all away for free. So anyway,
Thank you so much, Marshall.
Now, would you like me to share it with people?
I can't wait to dive into Marshall Bots, but let's just hear from the other speakers. If everyone else could just show their faces and just tell us in one sentence why you're passionate about AI. So is Tui here from Sweden?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, why are you passionate about AI? Tui,
right.
Just in a sentence or two.
Right. So my name is Tui, and I am the Chief Technology Officer and the co-founder of Astrid Education. And Astrid Education is an AI technology from the inception. We build AI products all about to help people to speak confidently and to speak fluently, especially in English. So my team and my work, I basically use the whole time of my day to work and build AI solutions for companies, for people, for schools, for sales teams, and so on. And
so
in
it's
the
your bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Thuy. It's evident that you're a real expert in this field. And I'll let you tell us much more about your solutions after Marshall. But we want to just see everyone's faces. So Isabella, I know you're an expert as well in the IT space, but if you could just tell us one reason why you are passionate about AI.
The one reason is the one that Peter Drucker already alerted us to, and he wrote in Management Challenges for the 21st Century, that the 20th century, he wrote there, we increased manual worker productivity by around 50-fold. The key management challenge, he says, of the 21st century is to bring about a similar increase in the productivity of knowledge workers. Here we are, excited to learn from all the other speakers how we're doing.
Thank you, Isabella. And Johann, we have with us also the Chief Academic Officer from Hult International Business School. Johann, why are you so eager about this topic?
I'm super excited about this, and I welcome and embrace all developments that we've seen now, because education will not be the same. I am old enough to have seen other revolutions and other sort of cool technology here, but I recall when the calculator came in. I recall also when the computer came and when the internet came, and all of those changes. Of course, there was hype and it kind of stabilized, but all of those changes fundamentally changed how we educate people. And this is doing the same. That's why I'm really excited.
Looking forward to hearing much more from you too, Johann. And you can't be as old as that makes you sound. Andreas, we have a manager joining us from Zeiss, member of the group leadership team. Andreas, why are you passionate about this topic?
Well, it's indeed somehow risky to invite a guy like me to such a panel discussion, because we talk about the new possibilities and the great things AI has to offer. And here comes this person stating, well, before we go too crazy about AI, let's hold on for a second. And I will show you that this has something to do with real innovation. And it's my conviction that life in general is more about surprises and opportunities and not probabilities. And this is something I would refer to, because I think it's a great opportunity. I'm also, like Johann, old enough to understand how technology shapes society. And I will happy to contribute my thoughts to this audience to make it a broad discussion.
Excellent, Andreas, thank you. And it's important that we have people such as yourself here who help ensure that we don't get carried away. And I'm sure a lot of people are very happy that you're here to represent a cautious or sensible or mindful approach. And last but not least, Benoit, we have the CEO of Resilience Institute with us. And Benoit, I'm curious to hear about your own passion for this topic of AI.
So first, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the facilitation. I would say in 2 words, humanity is facing amazing challenges. We all know that. It's huge, it's big. And I do believe that AI, if we use it the right way, can help our human civilization to do a positive quantum leap forward. But we need to manage that well. And we do believe that resilience developing a resilience of people and leaders can help us to use it the best way.
Absolutely. And resilience just happens to be the theme of this year's in-person Global Peter Drucker Forum in Vienna. So highly timely and relevant, as well as today's topic. Now, Marshall, thank you for your patience. We have been very excited at the Drucker Forum to get to know Marshall Bot, your alter ego, or how would you describe your relationship to this creature?
Well, what happens is very interesting for me, because this isn't just some abstraction or theory, it's quite personal. First thing I'd like to say, I totally agree with what Andreas said. I think this has potentially an unmitigated disaster. So let's be perfectly clear. I'm not some wild-eyed proponent of any of this stuff. Let me give you an example. You see the little machine I have here? Who would have thought 40 years ago you could carry this thing around in your hand with unlimited knowledge, great computing power, access to access to travel, access to video, everything in your hand, and cost almost nothing. And depression around the world is an all-time high. So I am hardly a big wild-eyed proponent of all this new technology stuff. It's also great. Why are people more depressed than any time in history? So there's a lot of problems that come with this stuff. I talked to my friend Martin Lindstrom about it. Martin is working on the world's largest metaverse project. I said, Martin, why are you doing this? He won't even carry around a cell phone. Why are you doing this? This can be an unmitigated, metaverse will be an unmitigated disaster in terms of addiction for children. He said, I totally agree. That's why I'm doing it. Let's do something good here. Well, why am I doing this? I agree with Andreas. This has potential to be an unmitigated disaster. And I'm doing that because let's do something good here as opposed to just stand on the outside and whine and complain about how terrible things are. That's about it.
I'm very happy that someone such as yourself, Marshall, is weighing in and being a part of the development. In fact, I would encourage all of us, we'll discuss this more in the panel later, but I totally agree with the approach that for people who are concerned, the best thing we can possibly do is get stuck in and be a part of the conversation, not from the outside, but from the inside. Now, many of you will know Marshall Goldsmith. Of course, for 8 years in a row, Marshall has been recognized as one of the world's top 10 business thinkers. And Marshall, you are in fact the only person to be twice ranked by Thinkers 50 as the #1 leadership thought leader. So it's a real honor to have you with us. And it's really exciting that for the millions of people like me who wish that they could work with you in a personal capacity, we can, of course, read your books and follow you online. But now we can, I think, if I understand you correctly, actually work with your bot. Please tell us what you have planned for people like me.
Well, I wouldn't say now exactly. This is a work in progress. Let me give you the sequence. The first step in this is MarshallBot the text, where I'm working to teach MarshallBot what I know, feeding it all my articles, materials, whatever, and it's a text response. Next is MarshallBot the audio. So we're going to have audio where you can speak and it'll speak back in my voice. The next is MarshallBot the video. So you won't even know this is me or MarshallBot. This may or may not be me. In the future, this may be MarshallBot. And then finally, MarshallBot in the metaverse. I'm basically going to be developing my own metaverse avatar with a green t-shirt on. So anyway, for me, this is it. And this is the biggest project in my life. So I have spent probably 100, 150 hours training MarshallBot. So what happens is I ask it questions, it provides an answer, I can give it feedback. Now, this is not like a GPT bot. This is different. This is personal. So I can control the data. What you put in is what you get out. I can control what you put in on this thing. So I'm very committed to this. It's going to take me a long, long time. By the way, the first thing I want to tell you, if you want to do something like it, it's not easy. I'm very fortunate. Fractal Analytics is spending mega bucks on this stuff. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. Like anything else, what you put in is what you get out. So for me, though, it's very, very exciting. Great fun.
Could you share, Marshall, would you mind giving us a sneak peek? Are you allowed to show us something already?
Oh, I'm going to try. Can you see it?
You've started to screen share. Absolutely.
You can see it. All right, now everybody has to be quiet for a second. We can make this work.
Excuse me, could everybody please mute themselves, because otherwise we'll have difficulty with this demonstration, as well as hearing our speakers when they have something to say. Thank you so much. Marshall, please, let's try again.
What did MarshallBot learn? Oh, just a second. Cancel. What did just a second. Try again. What did Marshall go? Oops, I'm going to get this right. What did Marshall Goldsmith learn from Peter Drucker? Now, MarshallBot is thinking. This is something it's working on. Sometimes it takes it 20 seconds. Sometimes it takes it a little bit longer. Sometimes it's almost instantaneous. The thing about, I want everybody to realize though, as we discuss this, is it's not going to get slower and it's not going to get worse. Let me give an example from AT&T. Years ago, I was working.
Marshall Goldsmith learned many valuable lessons from Peter Drucker. One of the key lessons he learned was the importance of making a positive difference in the world. Drucker taught him that our mission in life is not to prove how smart or right we are, but to focus on making a positive impact in selling our ideas to decision makers. Another important lesson Marshall learned from Drucker was that every decision in life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision, and it is essential to make peace with that fact. Additionally, Drucker emphasized the importance of loving what you do and communicating that enthusiasm to others. These are just a few of the valuable lessons that Marshall Goldsmith learned from Peter Drucker.
Now, I hope everyone could hear that, okay? But at least that will give you a little bit of an idea of how this works. And it's a very, very fascinating project, and I can edit it. So it occasionally makes mistakes, but I can edit the mistakes. For example, today it made a little unfortunate mistake. It had me married to someone other than my wife.
Whoops.
Not such a good one.
How did you react to that?
That wasn't real good. So, so anyway, MarshallBot can be edited. So I am working on it, but that's it's been a fun and fascinating project for me. So what I just like to do is just ask people if you have any questions. And again, I was at AT&T years ago. Let me put this in context. I was giving a speech to high potential leaders. I said, I just got a call from some kid in India over something like the internet, and it was free. And I said, you know, 105% of your profit at AT&T is long distance phone calls. This has to be phenomenally threatening to you. Most of the people said, oh no, the quality is no good, you know, blah, 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 no big deal. Two kids came up afterwards to the presentation. They said, we're leaving this place. These people are idiots. Well, AT&T ultimately got bought out by Southwestern Bell. What you see as AT&T is no longer what AT&T was. This stuff is only going to get better, cheaper, and faster. So you can sit there and say, well, the voice wasn't quite perfect, whatever. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get cheaper. It's only going to get faster. And the other thing I would say is this is very real. This hype stuff, this is not hype. How about, how about postponing this for 6 months? Not going to happen. There are literally trillions of dollars on the table here. Trillions, not millions, trillions of dollars in the winner of this little contest. This is very, very real. This is very, very real. It is going to happen. It's, to me, in my mind, this is not hype. This is going to change the world. It's a very, very big deal. So I'm very excited. And it's also quite existentially interesting. I'm training my replacement. I'm not going
Marshall, this opens up all sorts of questions and implications. We do have to move on to our next case study, but we do look forward to discussing more of MarshallBot in the panel discussion. Final question, Marshall, if you could just give, I've seen a lot of people asking in the comments, when can I access this? And it's the question I have. Do you have any sort of timeline for that?
I would imagine this will be, I'm guessing, in about 2 to 3 months.
Wow, great. Well, we look forward to that then. Isabella, I know that you as a business psychologist would have all sorts of questions and thoughts. Do you just have one very short reaction for us to what Marshall shared?
Well, sure. Firstly, amazed. Congratulations, Marshall. It's a wonderful thing. Really looking forward to talking to you without the charge. Like in your case, this is a serious thing here. But I thought also what Johann said, the pocket calculator. I think that today we face the pocket calculator for text, for information and knowledge. It's the same type of revolution. And there was a huge outcry that, I don't know, kids won't learn how to calculate when we introduced the pocket calculator to schools. Now it's there. Okay, the calculus is like less good than we used to be, but however, we're still there. And something similar is going to happen today. And this is one of the key examples that you just showed, Marshall, how we're going to work with that type of knowledge and preserving it and accessing it also. And I think it's not that clear that we have some learning to do at every change of an era. At the beginning of the industrial age, everyone could have a book. Would be advantages to be able to read, to benefit from the innovation, right? And so we have the same thing today, although it's not quite as obvious that we need to learn. We need to learn a lot, how to safely use it, how to recognize fake news and so forth. So there is a lot to learn at such a stage that we are actually right now that we're at.
Thank you so much,
Marshall,
Isabella.
Thank you.
Yeah. Marshall, would you mind please stopping your screen share as we move to the next speaker? Great.
Let me try to do this.
There you go. Wonderful. Thank you. Now, isn't this exciting, folks? Imagine if we'd had this sort of opportunity and someone like Peter Drucker had done what Marshall is doing now. So I'm really excited about this sort of opportunity, but it does raise a lot of questions for thought leaders and business models, doesn't it? Now, the Peter Drucker Forum itself has also been starting to experiment with our own AI. Unfortunately, we can't interview and program a Drucker bot like Marshall's been doing, but our very own Ashraf Abushadi has created a Peter Drucker app. It's too early to give details. If you're interested, do sign up for our newsletter. And Ashraf is actually at the AI for Good Summit today in Geneva, which is why he can't join us and share his experience directly. Now, individuals such as Marshall, Goldsmith are disrupting the space of individual contributors. And of course, Peter Drucker was all about the knowledge worker. But what happens when several knowledge workers get together and start working together on a new technology such as artificial intelligence? I would like to introduce our next speaker, Thuy Tran, who was a key member at successful startups like Shopify, Spotify, and Zettel by PayPal. And a few years ago, Thuy co-founded her own startup, Astrid Education, where she's currently CTO. So Thuy, thanks for joining us. And I'd like to start by asking you a question, because I'm very curious what the inside of an AI startup looks like. Internally, are you using the same tools as the big, slow corporates?
Thank you. Such an interesting question. And I have been in many companies, big and small, like you mentioned, PayPal is a corporation, and also Spotify and Shopify are high-tech companies in entertainment and also in e-commerce. And when it comes down to Astrid Education, or really core AI companies, the life there is so different. I can tell you some examples. We build AI products for verbal communication to provide to companies, to sales teams, to coach people, and also to use internally as well. And it completely changed the cost line of many departments in our companies. I bring here today with me two examples. When it comes down to communication, verbal communication, what we see is that moving forward, we predict that verbal communication become one of the very last thing, very human. The very last thing will be replaced by AI. And communication, our belief fundamentally is that everyone deserves to become really confident speaker and successful in communication, whether that is for your own personal career development, or is that for a sales team members, or is that for customer success team members. So what we have seen so far is that many people struggle with communications. And to really coach and step up and upskills in that, it takes the person huge commitment to step out and to take courses and to take coaching. It's a huge engagement problems. And a lot of employees, regardless of investment from the companies to them to make them a successful communicators, they can't afford that because life happens. They can't have time to just keep going into classes and training. For managers and for leaders, and I'm pretty sure that from my experience, and I share with many, we see our team members extremely potential. We probably can like manage 100, a department of 150, 1,000 people. We see 90% of them, if just that we can sit down and coach them, they will be successful. But we can't afford that. So the alternative traditionally is that we would go and hire professional coach for them, but only a few can really get that investment. The rest, as managers, we need to walk away. I'm sorry. So what we do is actually we do two things. We have a core AI technologies that we have been building for the last 3 years. We call it CAC. What it does is that it has the first C for capturing communication. So we capture the voice someone speak. The A stands for analysis. So after we did it a suite of AI systems that basically analyze, understand, and build a profile about communication skills of each members. And because it's pure AI, it scales massively. It doesn't matter that my team or company has only one person I need to coach and understand, or it's 1,000, 10,000, or even 1 million of people. So we can constantly track and build this profile communications of infinite number of potential people. The last C stands for coaching. So Astrid specialized in education at the start. We have been working so closely with coach, with teachers, and we take we distill the knowledge of coach, expert coach, so human knowledge that we teach people for the last few thousand years, combine that with the AI, especially LLM, so that we can take the analysis of the user profile and we can compile coachings accordingly at the right time and personalized for people. Our coaching framework very much based on aggregated marginal gains. We don't believe that sitting in class, download knowledge for a few hours and you are done. But we call it like 1% every day. We coach you something along your working flow. You don't need to do anything, but the promise is that you get better. 1% every day, you can get 30% better after a year. So that is on, and we use it for our company and we use it for our customers as well. Now, when it comes down to that, what does that mean? For company and for me as a manager, when we use internally, we don't need to pay so much to grow our team members. We have seen our customers where they have sales team of thousands of people. So usually for sales teams like this, they need to do QA, quality assurance or quality control, which you can do. The baseline is that 2% of that get randomly selected and manually tested by someone listening into the recording. This is not scale. Now, the next step, people can do their technology, they can automatically QA. So auto QA basically can analyze everyone, but then manager gets stuck with like report of statistics. And the difficult thing is actually in automatic coaching. And this is where LLM and other AI technology and expert domain knowledge about teaching and coaching can combine together so that we can coach everyone in autopilot mode effectively. We use it in our company. I'm confident that my team members now have something coach them how to speak confidently, efficiently, storytelling, engaging, influencing, for example, or the very foundational skills. Speaking in English, do you pronounce or you speak everything correctly, clearly? Do people understand you? Do you sound fluently, for example, and confidently? So we have this framework that believe that it will work. The second application we also use in-house as well is in the hiring process. So it's just a case study that I did last month. I need to hire engineers into my new team. And we open to the global knowledge worker workforce. So I let people from all over the world to apply. Now, to do this in other companies, you need to allocate quite sustainable amount of resource from HR to screen people. And even after screening people, because this is very much in engineers, it's not the same with normal English. There are a lot of people who may still speak normal English okay. But when it comes down to terminology, they stuck, and the team gets stuck with engineers that in this technical discussion, people cannot understand. It is a huge cost for company to do. So at Astrid, we use the same Astrid brand, CIC, but we only use a C and the A. So based on that, we can analyze people when they speak, and then we apply with a way to evaluate and access so that we can screen candidates automatically. Just only a few minutes test in English in any craft, either PM, product manager, is that designer, is that manager, is that HR or sales teams. Few minute test, we basically can massively screen out everyone that if we didn't do, either we need to put so much resource in personal interview, or we basically by accident will hire someone that would lead to very inefficient communications. This drove down cost. Only one person could do that within a few days.
So it's really fascinating, Thuy, to see how you used your own technology to screen applicants for a programming position at your own company. That's certainly something that most organizations can't do with their own technology. And of course, it's both fascinating and a little frightening to someone like me, who as a storytelling coach helps people to communicate better, to hear that your software can analyze something like a sales call and give people real-time feedback. Now, in terms of time, unfortunately, we do have to move on. Isabella Marder, who we briefly heard from earlier, will share with us what is happening at established companies. Now, we've heard from an individual, a group of individuals at a startup bringing disruption. What about the larger organizations, Isabella? Just briefly, Isabella Marder is an information scientist herself as well. She's also a business psychologist, researcher, and advisor. She lectures in the field as well, field of IT strategy and business psychology. And she's the publisher of XBN Executive Business News. In 2013, Isabella Marder was awarded the top CIO of the year, which is in Austria, and she serves on several boards. Isabella, we're looking forward to your update of what's happening in larger organizations.
Right. Thanks very much for the introduction, Jyoti. I brought two examples, but I would like to start off again with Peter Drucker, like with the key management challenge of the 21st century being the task to increase the productivity of knowledge work. And the question is, where do we stand there? How are we doing there? And after 15 years of work research, I have an opinion. We need help. Like everyone's stressed, behind on doings, behind on emails, readings, ever more red tape. So not looking too good here. We deal with at least 30 times the information that we used to deal with at our desks per person, like in the 1970s. So it's like 30 times as much. We keep searching for documents and information 1 to 3 hours a day, unchanged over the course of the last 25 years, while processor speed is increased 7,000-fold. Information just 30-fold. I think it's a lot. And staff increased by roughly doubled over the last decades at the same time since the 1970s. So double the people work on 30 times as much information. So it's like not something that we think we can't organize ourselves now suddenly today. So there is a reason behind it. So how can AI and LLMs, like large language models, for instance, help? And there I brought the two cases that you wanted to hear, Jyoti. The first one is enterprise search. So it's like your in-house on-premise search engine. It works with your company data and information from all types of sources, like from your file server, from chats, from the intranet, your email inboxes, and also all other sources that you would like it to read. It indexes those sources. We'll see what is there. And then your employees can ask a natural language question, and the results will be much quicker and much more to the point than a standard search that we're all using now on our file servers, for instance. And you will also not have to launch several searches. Now, with the German government institution, we've established such a secure enterprise search. So just in case you don't want to hand your information to Google or ChatGPT, so there is also safe alternatives, unless you explicitly want them to read your information. So the goal was to dramatically reduce the search time from around 2 hours that they had measured to 30 minutes. This was the goal. And now they're currently measuring, and the first day's average is at 36 minutes, down from 2 hours. So that's quite substantial as an improvement. And the second example is LLMs as documentation and coding assistant for the IT department. So the IT staff at a corporation in the manufacturing industry, they kept lagging behind with their documentation. So there's always too many tickets coming in, and so it's like was too much, overburdened. So they set up an on-premise language model to help with 2 tasks: finding errors in code, which is like the search usually takes a long time, and then for also writing the documentation on the code or on the code fixes that they did. And this also then helped the service desk, as it turned out, because now those guys and gals can find the complete information and up-to-date information much quicker, and they don't have to wait for the programmer or developer to come back to a specific question. So now they haven't monitored the time saved, but they reported to be caught up with their documentation after 1.5 months. So that's not too bad either. Not shabby, as we say.
Very interesting, Isabella. Thank you for that update. I remember when I started a new job and I was worried to annoy people with my silly questions as a newbie. So I can imagine even for topics like onboarding individuals, this could really help accelerate the learning curve and save countless hours of time. Of course, it's important to connect with colleagues as well, but sometimes you just don't want to be that ignorant person. Wonderful. I think we'll respond to each other more in the panel discussion. So if we could move on, I'll just mention, since Isabella, you talked about enterprise search, the Global Peter Drucker Forum actually is using this sort of approach now when it comes to our own library, because this November we are actually having the 15th Global Peter Drucker Forum. And you can imagine that over the last 14 years, we've had hundreds of sessions with top academics and practitioners, and there's a real gold mine of information and inspiration that we're sitting on, but a lot of that has been untapped. So that really resonates with us, that example that you just brought. So the Drucker Forum has partnered with SOAR, S-O-A-R, and we uploaded our files, which were actually our videos, which were automatically transcribed and indexed so that our members can now search across all our video and audio content to find what experts have said on any topic. So that's a really valuable resource for our members. And if anyone would like to become a member, then you could check out the link in the chat. Johann Rose, Chief Academic Officer and Professor at Hult International Business School, drives the school's AI policy across all value-creating academic activities. And since, well, Johann was one of the early people, at least in my network, to really start making noises and publicly arguing for embracing generative AI in higher education and elsewhere. My favorite part of Johann's impressive background is he is the co-inventor of the Lego serious play method. And like Isabella, he's also an advisor to the Drucker Society Europe. So Johann, it sounds like management's going to be quite different going forward if we can have new employees questioning large language models instead of colleagues or managers. How are you preparing future managers for this kind of environment? And of course, how are you coping with the massive changes that have already hit higher education?
Yeah, thank you, Jyoti. Lots of questions in that, of course, but let me start by saying that I have worked in several business schools, and actually 7 business schools in 6 countries, and also been in the leadership team or led 4 of those. So I've been partaking in several big change initiatives, because in education we change all the time. So to some extent, I will look upon what we're doing now as a change or transformation process. So we can revert to that. But let me say that I'll also start with a Peter Drucker sort of angle to it and say that while we're facing these dramatic changes that we're seeing now, there, not everything is changed. There are things in society that will remain stable. And I think this is definitely the case in education in general, and certainly in higher education as well. So I just want to make that clear. Not everything is changing, but generative AI, which I will refer to as that, is big. And it is a big transformer in the whole education sector. Undoubtedly, that is the case. Let me just share with you that we started, and I started personally also already in December to play with ChatGPT 3, just to get a feel for it. I happen to have a son who's really into this, so I learned from him that this is very important as well, so I shouldn't take the credit. But I started very early on to do this, and it was blatantly obvious to me that we need to get moving on this. And in January, we kicked off a lot of work in the Hult International Business School on doing that. But also in January and early February, there were a couple of really interesting deans meetings through global deans coming together. I typically attend those. And I remember a session I did on one of these with hundreds of people, deans from all over the world, mostly US actually at that time. And I asked, how many of you have tried ChatGPT 3? About 10% put up their hand. I did about the same non-scientific Gallup data gathering in June, early June, at another dean's meeting, so a very different dean's meeting, different crowd. And I asked about the same, and I got about 20% of people holding up their hand, which made me yell and scream at them. Because I think this is too important not to get on to do something with. So what did we do in our case? So I'm sort of a case, representing a case, a particular very international business school with campuses in five places in the world: Dubai, London, Boston, Shanghai, and also New York and Singapore in the summer. But what we started to do immediately was to kick off two things at the same time. One is immediate experimentation and coaching and doing stuff. So faculty, some expert, taking some good opinion leaders, working with them to start experimenting and doing stuff. Of course, coaching, helping, and doing all of that. At the same time, we kicked off a sort of a policy task force. And I've led and initiated a bunch of task forces in sector in my life. And this is the first time I've had faculty volunteer for it. So we got a lot of excited people sort of self-electing to come on board and be part of the movement. And so we did these two things at the same time: experimenting, trying things out, failing, experimenting, at the same time as there were, you remember that, thousands of new apps were launched every month in February, March. And there's some really great stuff. And some are just a shallow, thin layer on top of ChatGPT. But there's a lot of interesting tools that can be helpful to design anything from design courses, design sessions, very deep flipping of the classroom, very different pedagogies to do that. And there's tools also that help research, that summarize articles, that basically can do a literature review for you and so forth. So we did this at the same time as we drove a policy discussion, which has taken several months, which is very important because we're highly regulated and we make a promise to students to deliver certain learning, and we have assurance of learning practices and so forth, and we better deliver this. So the question is, how will this impact this? So we've gone through, how does this impact admissions? How does this impact teaching and learning? How does this impact curricula questions? How does this impact assessments, academic integrity issues? All of the things you've read about in newspapers, where they're typically focused on the negative, not on the positive, focus on the problem, not on the opportunity. So this we worked on. So we've been pretty early at this and pretty forceful in also driving it inside at the same time as we've been sort of pushing out, and I think I've been heading this also in our organization, to really talk about this to the outside world and writing pieces for industry journals, talking at conferences, telling everybody, get going, you have to learn, you have to try it out so we can discuss, share practices, and all become better and better prepared for this. So that's sort of one case of insight. And you could say there's a bigger picture on this, and that is what you also asked about, Jyoti. And that is, of course, what about future managers? As some of you may know, business education, broadly defined with economics and so forth, is about 20 to 25% of all higher education in the world. It's a $500 billion industry, plus all the books and stuff. But so it's huge. And business students, graduates, tend to get jobs. They tend to get jobs because they're pretty action-oriented. So there's a whole understanding of how can we help the graduates to become really good at this. So we realized very early on that, it's skills on top of the knowledge. We're not just teaching knowledge. We have to teach skills. So all of the human skills, all sort of business skills, and all of the technical skills. And generative AI really very fast is becoming, you can say, a technical skill, but it's moving very fast now also to become an essential business skill, like to be able to budget or do a marketing plan or whatever. So this is becoming a skill, and the students are screaming for it. Not sure when or if it will become an essential human skill, but given what Astrid and Thuy is talking about, this is perhaps a skill of communicating better and so forth. So there are collaboration, communicating, being creative, and being critical thinking as well. All of that we also try to kind of help with the help of generative AI as well. So I'll stop there and just be open for questions, of course.
Thank you so much, Johann. It sounds like you have your work cut out for you, as do we all. And that reminds me, the last thing you shared reminds me of a quote that Isabella shared, which was, AI literacy is the new reading and writing. So it sounds like you're taking that same view. Our next speaker is Andreas Kemp, who has experience in the leadership on both technical and business sides. Andreas is a member of the group leadership team at Zeiss, or Zeiss, as we say in German, which sees itself as an enabler for technology. And it brings together the efforts of 44,000 employees worldwide. Now, with the lifespan on average shrinking of Fortune 500 companies really pretty drastically over the last decade, I think it's really important and valuable that we hear from a company such as Zeiss that's just kept growing and innovating since 1846. That's 176 years. And I didn't realize this, but Zeiss products or technology touches all of our lives. So starting at the specs, the lenses that I wear, but also if you go to the cinema, if you have ever owned an iPhone, or right down to semiconductors, which are in, of course, computers and smartphones. Zeiss creates all sorts of things. In fact, I was discussing with Andreas the other week, and I mentioned how I'm in the virtual reality storytelling space as well. And Andreas said that they're also in VR. And in fact, the pharmaceutical company that I'm doing this for is also a client of Zeiss's, because Zeiss creates some of their med tech. So Andreas, great to have you with us. And you mentioned that two topics you're particularly interested in are cooperation and corporate survival. And I think those two are highly relevant for our discussion today.
Yeah, thanks for this kind opening. And yes, Zeiss is a very old company, but never left, I would call it, the startup mode. So we've been an innovation company ever since. Just to give you a number, about 13% of our annual revenue is reinvested in research and technology again. So it's right from the beginning, we tried somehow to push the limits of imagination, and we constantly challenge scientific or technology borders in the field of optics. So it's quite interesting. And when it comes to our business, it's all about innovation. And what makes me a bit hesitated when it comes to AI, I would like to share some thoughts we have on innovation, because when you really talk about innovation, and I talk about radical innovation, you basically create something totally new. You start with a white sheet of paper and you start building something from scratch, from 0 to 1. And at that stage, it's a very creative process. It's a very learn-intensive process. You try things and they do not work, and then you go back, you learn and continue like that. So in this stage, a very probabilistic or deterministic information is of very limited help to achieve this kind of radical innovation and exploration mode. So here at that stage, I would say it's a very rational behavior to be hesitant and cautious when it comes to AI, because AI basically refers to training data, and all that you get out of is probably the wisdom of the crowd, but I would call it, it might be the average wisdom of the crowd, and it's also old data, it's old history, and it doesn't help you when it comes to innovation to refer to that old stuff. And innovation has also something to do with the capabilities and knowledge and IP and so on. And I'm challenging the idea that feeding an algorithm with proprietary knowledge is a good idea when you try to keep your IP under control. You can do it in secure environments, but nevertheless, this training you do and the interaction with like ChatGPT, you would probably end up with devaluing your knowledge and make this knowledge accessible for other people or everyone. And as I learned this morning, you know, ChatGPT users use the algorithm to bypass paywalls. So they force the big integration, because that's another risk that you somehow lose your IP. So coming from the innovation idea and the question how to be innovative, AI models and old data are not really helpful. And I can remember the Drucker Forum 2016 when Clayton Christensen talked about data, and he said, well, there are no data in heaven because data lie all the time, and nothing that lies can be in heaven. So if people ask me for data, I tell them go to hell. And this is a harsh statement, of course. And I'm with you, and we heard it when you talk about scaling, about cost effectiveness, coping with quantity, and so on. It's very helpful to have the AI, but it's, as I'm also a risk manager, I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to the application. So what did we do, and what surprised us in the process? Well, first of all, we started with a limited number of people engaging with this technology. So we are very much in a cautious learning mode. And for the broader applications, we try to find appropriate technical solution. It's more a cautious step-by-step approach. Or as Johann said, we tried something, we learned something, we adjusted accordingly. And by this step-by-step approach, we got more familiar with the capabilities of large language models. And that's an important point. We are all some kind of nerdy guys in the company. So you just saying you must not use ChatGPT wouldn't hinder anyone to do that, because we are all curious people, and of course it's new technology we're excited about. So what we try to do is we try to build up a kind of code of conduct as a kind of guiding framework for the users to make them aware of the risk and encourage them to embrace on the capabilities, of course. And this fits more or less to the culture, and will help us to let's say to bring it into the company with accepting a limited kind of risk. But one thing I have to mention, and it comes back to humanity and the people, and we heard it many times in this discussion already. It releases you from stupid, nasty tasks. And I think that's an important point, where you can use large language model to help you solve standard tasks. And I wouldn't consider innovation a standard task, but when it comes to programming or drafting a standard legal text or doing the budgeting stuff, and it's all nasty work that hinders you to be really creative. And at that point, I'm really confident, and I think we should leverage on this technology to get human capabilities and human know-how for that, what we really needed for innovation, to find solution. And there are enough challenges on this planet where we need creativity, but I think this is the creativity that comes from people and not from AI. But in the end, it's neither only AI or no AI. It's of course collaboration and cooperation. And that's the point where I'm already interested in how to cooperate to get the best out of all worlds, to induce innovation, to induce progress, and to solve the biggest problem we have on the planet.
Thank you, Andreas. And that is a great question for our panel discussion afterwards. I can also see that people are active in our chat, and there's just been a great point. Garbrand van der Molen has responded that Netflix ran into this problem that you, Andreas, were talking about of training LLMs on existing or old data, and Netflix started to produce content which was more and more similar, and their revenue quickly went down after that. Thank you, Andreas. Last but not least, let me ask you all to give a virtual welcome to Benoit Grendel. Andreas, we wish you all the best for the next 176 years of innovation at the Zeiss. And what something like that will require is a lot of creativity and a lot of resilience. And this is a great bridge to our in-person forum in Vienna this November, very end of November, and December, 3 days. And Benoit Grendel, as mentioned earlier, is the CEO of Resilience Institute. So we're looking forward, Benoit, to your experience with purpose-led businesses. Benoit has an extensive background in developing commercial real estate services across Europe, America, and Asia. And as an entrepreneur, Benoit founded DBA Associates, which grew to having operations in 8 countries. And next, he co-founded Realis Group, a consultancy firm based in Shanghai with offices in 28 countries. Benoit has also been very involved with B Lab, a group that certifies B corporations. And Benoit, you launched Switzerland's very first B Corp. And so we're very curious to hear, Benoit, what is your take on the rapid changes when it comes to technology and how people interact with, let's say, either a Marshall bot or a enterprise search function like Isabella was describing, or the rapid changes our managers and decision makers are going to face? Please share with us your thoughts on what resilience looks like and how to foster it in this sort of environment.
So thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. As you said, I am a real entrepreneur, and at 57, my learnings is that if as entrepreneur I'm still alive, it's thanks to my ability to adapt and the teams that I've been leading to adapt fast. And I think that in the world of today, adapting is very important. And AI, we all know that will disrupt really the way we live, we work, the way we are consuming and living on Earth. So, of course, entrepreneur, you need to develop a positive mindset, a growth mindset, and see the positive side of things. So at the Resilience Institute, which is a consulting tech-based firm founded by Dr. Sven Hansen in New Zealand, we equip leaders, people, and organizations to achieve high performance with care. And how we do that, it's very easy. We help them making the best use of their different human dimension, the physical dimension, the emotional dimension, the mental or cognitive dimension, and the spiritual or ethical dimension. And very often we forget that we are all that at the same time. And I do believe that AI is more tackling that mental dimension. But performance is not only about what you have in mind, it's about the way you are able to align your different dimensions. And that's why I believe it's an opportunity for us to develop those other and more and deeper human skills. At the Resilience Institute, which is a global firm, a small one, a boutique consulting firm, but with people all around the world, we work with very large organizations. And also we are quite active in the healthcare and education sector. We see that what is coming can be frightening with AI, it has been said. So the changes and the speed of change coming are just, wow, it's a big challenge for many. And it's new challenges on other ones that we know, and environment, political, and so on and so on. And we do believe that more than ever, we need to equip people and help them to see those things coming as a positive thing, in order to really help organizations to do that, and people and human civilization to do that quantum leap to a new civilization. It's now or never, and we strongly believe that it's feasible. And on a very practical point of view, how do we do that, and how do we use AI internally at the Resilience Institute? First, personally, I'm using that on a daily basis for many. I'm using ChatGPT for many things, to prepare a speech, to search for potential clients, to better understand different topics in the supply chain and so on. But as we have a digital platform assessing the level of resilience of organizations and leaders. We have a lot of data, and thanks to AI today, we are investing quite a lot to try to predict, and based on the data that we have, what are the most important skills that organizations need to develop in order to still perform in those time of quick changes. And so we are able to come with accurate diagnostic on the level of resilience of people and teams, able to predict, able to benchmark them against other organizations. And we can really design development plans in order to develop further the global level of resilience of teams. And we do believe that it's the only way to use and face the reality of today, and see what is coming as an opportunity to build more wealth that will be used smartly and spread between the different stakeholders of the organization. Our deep belief as a B Corp is that we can use business as a force for good, and that AI can help us to better understand all our stakeholders. But the only way to move to that direction is to enhance the level of consciousness of leaders and team members, and raise the level of consciousness of the organization.
Thank you so much, Benoit. Sounds again like we have a lot to do with each other. So I'd like to dedicate the remainder of our time to discussing with the panel, how can we go about doing this? As leaders, we have a responsibility not just to cope with our own emotions and practical challenges of learning to use new tools, but we have responsibility for a lot of other individuals and shepherding this particular moment in time. So before I open it up, I just want to mention that we do have a survey, and we would be very interested in you, our audience's responses, to help us at the Drucker Forum keep navigating. This is only a starting point, and we would like to keep engaging with you. So to help us better understand your needs and how we can serve you, do the things that Benoit was just describing, building resilience, in your organization and coping with all these other decisions that we have to make together and as individuals, please check out the SurveyMonkey link in the chat. Now I'd like to open up to all of our speakers and invite you to react. I know I was a little strict because we did have a lot of individuals sharing examples and questions, and now we have the opportunity to respond to each other. So was anybody waiting to say something that I didn't give you an opportunity to? Now would be the time. And otherwise, I would like
sorry, Shoti, there were a few interesting questions in the chat. Maybe we can respond to some of those.
So one thing that I saw, Isabella, one question which I think you would be perfect for is this question of the tsunami of information which is hitting us. I saw that one person commented, how can LLMs help us to deal with all this information, which is what we've been struggling with now for many years, and it's only getting worse. What is your response to that, Isabella?
Yeah, I saw the question as well. Like, do we fight the symptom if we apply LLMs to enterprise search? It was actually a very good question. Shouldn't we be tackling the information overload at the root cause? And the answer, as a researcher in the field, is it's over. We are not going to do this by hand. We're not going to do anything like with taxonomy or tagging, also not foxonomy, like the tagging of many, also over, also much too much. We need autonomy. Funny enough, this is also the name of AI tool that does exactly that. So we come from taxonomy to foxonomy to autonomy, like autonomous systems delivering the information to us, because we actually basically from the sheer amount, we won't be able to tackle this manually in any way, also not with the recent technology that we employed, because we have been searching for 1 to 3 hours per day, every day, for the last 25 years, although we increased the server speed and the processing speed by 7,000, and nothing happened. So that's not the way, and we can safely say it's over. And the second question that you spoke about, just also to answer very briefly, not to taking away too much time, psychological tsunami hitting mankind. Yes, that's why I would suggest that we don't just have AI literacy as a training, but also psychological literacy. As mankind, we don't have the excuse that we don't know how we tick. We do know, and we can teach. And that's, we also, at our institute, we launched psychological literacy course just recently, just for that matter.
Johann, I think you also have something to say about that.
Well, I have something to say about most things. Whether it's interesting, it's another question. But I think Isabella has some very good points. I also think, if I may refer to Andreas' excellent inputs, one of the things, of the many great things he said was, this will help us to take away boring stuff, boring work. And I think that's a really important point. And it's back to what Isabella referred to as the Druckerian notion of quadrupling or whatever productivity among knowledge workers. We see it's happening every day now. And there are tools that seems to increase productivity with 40 to 80%. Now, that is significant. And of course, why? Because it routinized boring stuff. And in the best of worlds, we will say, that's great, because then we can focus on what really matters. Right? Not everybody will react that way. There are movements and even organizations in the world that are very much not comfortable with it. I think we just have to acknowledge that this is also seen by as a threat to a lot of tasks.
Thanks, Johann. Now, there are so many tools and options, opportunities that we face as organizations. How do we go about in leadership teams getting unity on the direction that we want to take? Does anyone want to share about how you personally are managing the process to drive necessary changes in your organization? Andreas, you mentioned that you have a small group and that you had certain learnings. You're going through this iterative process. Could you share with us one of the early learnings that you've had?
Yeah, of course, it's, as I said, at the moment, we're following a very much better safe than sorry strategy when it comes to AI for the reasons I mentioned already. But we have a very focused step-by-step approach to learn, understand before we take the next step. I think that's the mitigation measure, saying we do not do the full-blown AI, but we do a step-by-step approach by learning, understanding, moving ahead, taking the next step. I think that's an important point. The next important point, and here it comes again back to people. I was very surprised when we started experimenting with AI, how important it is to write the right prompts. So prompt writing is really an important task, and besides the psychological matter, that is very important to really give people the confidence that there are still people and we are still a human company. It's important to understand also that it's a really virtue for effective utilization to be able to write the right prompts. So it's besides the psychological and the technical stuff, it refers also what Johann mentioned when it comes to education, making sure that the people are in the position to utilize the tools to the best benefit of the companies and their personally. And last remark when it comes to the psychological challenges. Well, we all, of course, love a kind of predictable life. We love to understand how the weather will be tomorrow, and we want to understand what happens next week and so on. And if we are confronted with too much uncertainty, we respond with stress. And stress, of course, has a serious negative impact on your ability to perform best possible. And you have to find the right balance to, on the other side, to have an interesting life, because at the end, life is about opportunities and not these kind of probabilities. And of course, we like life when it comes up with some unexpected twists and surprises, because that makes life interesting. And this is something AI cannot deliver. But again, it's not either or, it's both. It's cooperation of tools, of methodologies, of measures, of people. And with that all together, we can release the creativity we need. And I think that's the confidence I have in all these changes. We at the end can focus on we like most to be creative. And as we heard it already, that creativity is somehow a measure to become more resilient. If you're creative, you find a solution out of your problem. And for being creative, you really have to get rid of the nasty jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Andreas. We're taking questions in the chat now, so I'll just bring in some more of those. Peter Uberfeld asked a question of any of our speakers. Could it be possible to train AI as a curator for enterprise information demands? And I think that's really something with huge potential. So I would like to hear anybody's thoughts on that. Could LLMs become something of a corporate moderator that helps different leadership levels or even different departments to communicate better with each other? Any examples?
I think Thuy should answer this.
Yes. So I think technically my answer is absolutely yes. And I know that there are many companies, including big companies in Sweden. There's so many ideas, initiatives to basically, probably many of us hear the word like Bayes model. So the development of AI is almost like the very short snapshot of human brain evolution for the last few billion years. So the very first one is encoded in our DNA, a lot of learning that our species has learned and encoded, like a baby would know to avoid a spider just by instinct. And because this knowledge has been learned through the species, and we remember that. AI model as it is right now, they are basically massive artificial neural network. It builds this knowledge built in the memory. So it's home-based model, and building that is not easy. However, now what it happens next is that when the model reaches to the point where it obtains this kind of massive memory, that good enough that we have seen in GPT-3 last year, for example, it allows the model to be able to do something called fine tuning, what probably Marsha was looking into too, means that we, the same with human, we can start observing a much smaller amount of data and give a much smaller amount of instruction, and the model will learn with a noticeable behavior toward what we want it to do. What does it mean is that it's the same with human, like we can look at the 3 samples of a cat and the child will know that that is not really a cat. So this kind of learning is enabled now, it's fine tuning, and you can do it through many ways. The expensive way is to run training model fine tuning. That is quite expensive, $20,000, and you can train the whole Bloomberg data set on it. Or we can basically use very much smaller few samples embedded into your prompt. It's called seeding into the prompt to give instruction short term. Now, the same thing, a corporate, a lot of like a few hundred years old companies would have so much massive data lying around in the text form. Either that is the papers or in already digitalized, it won't be consumable by AI. And therefore you can do fine tuning toward that. And companies like Amazon, Google, or AWS or Azure are providing like so cheap off the shelf solution for anyone to do that. Or you can hire one small machine learning engineer who is really skilled, and they can do it for you too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think this is something with so much potential. If we look at AI as a sort of arbiter between different groups of people. One example, I was talking last week with the head of global talent product at Amazon, and he was sharing how they use Humu. I saw someone mention Humu earlier, and they'll actually, it's a real-time poll, right? So we can use large language models to get real-time insights as to how people are feeling and what their questions and concerns are. And so they actually have questions that they ask, such as, is your manager supportive? And then depending on the responses, they'll nudge that particular manager with hints like, did you know that managers like you have a 30% more satisfaction rate when they talk with their employees once a week? Things like that. And I would like to come back to Marshall Goldsmith, because what we're talking about here is engaging with best practices and things like that. So as a thought leader, Marshall, what are your thoughts on the future of experts such as yourself and the topic of is thought leadership? Will there be a future for thought leaders, so a young person such as myself who may in 20 or 50 years make more of a name for myself as a thought leader in the particular spaces I'm in? Will I have a chance if anyone could just go straight to Marshall Goldsmith and get your wealth of wisdom?
Well, you'll have a big chance as Marshall Goldsmith won't be here that much longer. So,
but your butt will be.
I'm 74, so you should have plenty of chances in the future. A couple of reflections. One is going back to Andreas' point of the wisdom of the crowd. I agree with you. To me, one of the problems with ChatGPT is boring. You are getting watered down answers. What I like about MarshallBot is me. It's not the wisdom of the crowd. It's not intended to give you the right answer. It's my answer. So that is quite different. Now, you said the problem is IP. Well, the good news for me is I'm perfect for this. Why? I give it all away anyway. And so I'm hardly worried that somebody's going to steal my IP. I have the world's best system to avoid anyone stealing my IP. You know what I do? Give it away. Well, if you give it away, nobody can steal it. So for me, a couple of these threats are really not threats. I think this is very good for the future in terms of people like me, thought leaders, and that you can actually hear different thoughts instead of this watered down chat GPT, vanilla stuff, you could get people with very different thoughts, and it's their thoughts. One of my old mentors told me this: never argue about semantics. It's a waste of time. Somebody says, what's leadership? There are 50 different definitions. People get all excited about this. Well, you could say, what one person thinks about leadership is X, what another one thinks is Y, and what another one thinks is Z, as opposed to this watered down vanilla definition. So final thought for me on a human dimension is, do I train MarshallBot to be me or better than me? Right now, MarshallBot can answer 50% of all questions addressed to me better than I can as judged by me. And this is MarshallBot 4, not MarshallBot 24. Do I train MarshallBot to be me or better than me? It's very hard for humans to think about somebody being better than we are.
Well, I think that is a challenging note to end on, Marshall. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our panelists and speakers. I wish we could keep going, but unfortunately we are almost out of time. I would like to ask everyone here to give a round of virtual applause. And Marshall is giving applause, or is that a final note you want to share with us? Well then, a round of virtual applause to everybody. I really hope you found this booster event useful. We still have a few unanswered questions, which we can't answer in a few minutes or even hours. It will take all of us working together and having many more conversations such as this one, such as trustworthy AI, a very interesting topic. And as a response, I saw somebody ask, well, how trustworthy are human beings? So maybe we can work together, AI and humans can work together to try and become more trustworthy across the board. But let us know. We do want to continue this conversation, so help us to understand your needs and fill in the survey. And meanwhile, I can mention that we do have another booster planned for this autumn, an event such as this one, which is online, which helps us to prepare for our grand flagship event in person in Vienna at the end of November. So we don't yet have a date or a topic for this next booster event, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'd like to hand over to Christine to present to you an opportunity related to the in-person forum, which you won't want to miss. Christine.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. I'm very impressed by all the discussions that happened here live. Thank you for moderating these discussions, Jyoti. It was wonderful to listen, also to read in the chat the lively discussions. I love that in the Drucker community. And as Jyoti already mentioned, this was just an appetizer. We have another event coming up in the fall, so keep your eyes out on that. And of course, what we have coming up in the fall is the Global Peter Drucker Forum, the 15th one, to be exact, this year, again in beautiful Vienna. It will take place on November 30 and December 1st. And also there will be a pre-event day, so to say, where we have some more exclusive events also from our sponsors. So feel free to check that out. And I would encourage you actually to click on the link that will be posted in the chat in just a second, because we have an early bird offer currently running only for a few more days. So if you already know that you want to attend, make sure to book the early bird now. And for you as the participants here in our session today, we have a very special offer, because if you are one of the first 10 ones to book your special offer now, we can actually guarantee you a seat at the speaker table at the exclusive gala dinner that we always have on the first day of the event. So if that is something you would want to enjoy, to be a part of discussions with management thinkers over a nice dinner in Vienna, I guess that sounds like a nice opportunity, then please book your ticket now. It will be, as I mentioned, open to the first 10 registrations that come in as we speak. I already see people applauding here. That's wonderful. And I also want to thank you from my side and from our side at the Drucker Forum. Thank you for joining here. Thank you for joining these discussions and making them even richer. And we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you to each and every speaker that joined our panel today. We could have filled hours and hours of content with having such an awesome panel here with us. And thank you for each and everyone who joined here today and enriched these discussions. So with that being said, click on the druckerforum.org link and register now. And we hope to see you back in the fall. And with that being said, have a good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are at in the world. Thank you for joining us here today. Goodbye. I see many people waving. Thank you. Bye.